right, good afternoon. Yeah, okay, the two worst places to be on the agenda are after lunch and after Dove Seidman. I got both. Okay, so that being said, let's talk a little bit, and there's going to be some activity behind me while we reset the stage for our next panel, about what's the impact of corporate responsibility on your workforce. What does it do to your brand? What does it do to what people think and feel about your company? Now, I used to work for a firm that provided HR services. And these services were essentially, we would manage the recruiting effort for major companies. Now, we'd go to the companies and we'd say, tell us something about your organization. And the response we would uniformly get is, well, I'd say, tell me about your culture. They'd go, well, we're nice. And I'd say, that's great. You know, nice is good. Can you give me a little bit more? And I'd sit and I'd wait, and then they'd go, well, we're really nice. Okay, well, being nice or really nice isn't really enough for your workforce. What you need is to be able to measure. Okay, so what's the impact of brand on the workforce? Now, we just did a study with one of the leading HR and human capital service providers, and one of their representatives is going to talk about it in a few minutes, a company called Allegis Talent 2, on what the impact was, and you saw it on one of the opening slides, of brand on employee perception. 75% of unemployed people said they would not accept a job with a company that had a tarnished brand. Now, does that mean that 75% would really turn down the job? No, but some percentage would. And the other percentage would surely take an offer from a competitor that had a better employment brand. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that if you are a company with a bad reputation, you cannot get the best talent. Okay? Now, 58% of employed people, these are people who had jobs, said they would change a job to go to a company with a tarnished reputation if they got on average a 100% increase. All right. Now, 83% said that they would take a 1 to 10% increase to go to a company with better corporate brand than their own. So the cost, just in payroll costs, would be astronomical to have a bad reputation because of the premium you have to pay for talent. Well, we're going to talk about that over the next couple of sessions. We're going to talk about culture, and we're going to talk about the impact of brand. Okay, so if your company's nice, or if you're one of those few that's really nice, okay, we want to talk about how you measure it, how you report it, and how you instill it through your organization. So that being said, I want to invite to the stage John Anthony Meza, who's one of the directors of Corporate Voices for Working Families, and our next panel. John Anthony.
Well, as our panel sits down, I just want to, so again, I'm John Anthony Meza. I'm with Corporate Voices for Working Families, and we provide leading and best practice businesses a voice on corporate and social policy issues that involve working families. So we know that business spends about $500 billion a year on education, training, and development. And out of the $15 billion in corporate philanthropy, about 15% of that is actually, about $2 billion is in education. But we still see this huge talent development need. U.S. business leaders continue to report struggles in hiring a skilled and prepared workforce. In the last CR magazine, the Manpower CEO was in, and he's going to be here this evening, talked about the amount of job openings that we have still, but we still have this high unemployment. At Corporate Voices, our member companies report that they actually new entrants to the workplace need not only the basic skills of reading, writing, and math, but they really need applied skills that are really related back to the workforce. And for those of you that were here yesterday with the Big Ideas Lightning session, Alexis Ringwald talked about that we still have this divide that's been building about the skills and the education of the American workforce and the needs of our nation's employers. So how can we bridge this divide? So here we have, through the private sector, that we need to ensure that we grow our current and future workforce. So one way that we see this bridge happening is leading best practice companies are making strides in crossing these departmental silos that they can then leverage this nearly $500 billion in education, training, development, and philanthropy to meet their business needs today and the current future workforce. So at Corporate Voices, we have striven to identify and highlight these business best practices that with the intent of scaling those practices that make significant contributions to the lives of working families, that has a return to their business, and that are strengthening our nation's economy and communities. Through our corporate members, we've actually been able to conduct research. We've been able to create tools and resources that help these leading best practice companies really sort of move their agenda forward and meet their HR and talent development goals. And there's actually a handout on your tables that talks about some of these resources that we have for you. There is also a highlight of some of the best practices that these businesses themselves are doing. So I'm going to sit down with our distinguished panel here that has Reg Foster from IBM. We have Bruce Morton from Allegis Talent 2, Carolyn O'Boyle from Deloitte, and Lalita Advani from Credit Suisse to really sort of talk through this crossing of silos to really sort of see how we can move some of this agenda forward. So as I sit down to the panelists, please introduce yourself, your role, and your organization. And if you could provide some initial thoughts and your own observations of sort of how we sort of can leverage this corporate responsibility goals and the impact on talent development. So Reg, if you wanted to start.
Sure. I'm Reg Foster. I'm with IBM. I'm our CSR coordinator, so we work closely as part of that team with our HR people. I think that all of the points that John Anthony made, if you connect that line of dots from people, companies, their workforce is the critical ingredient to their success. And it's getting harder and harder to recruit the people with the right skills, and those people more and more, both people coming out of college and people who are mid-career, think it's more and more important that the company they work for be a company that they feel has the right values. And I think that's the key to inspiring people, and that's when people are most effective, is when they're inspired. So we do everything we can, right from the point of recruitment, through the experience for the employees at work, to retain them and to tell them not only what we do as a company, as a good corporate citizen, but offer them opportunities to grow their skills and have experiences that revolve around our CSR program, whether that's volunteering. In some cases, it's actually using their skills from work. We communicate about it all the time. We think it's got to be an end-to-end experience for every employee to get the right people and keep them.
Great. Bruce?
Yeah, hi, I'm Bruce Morton, CMO of Allegis Talent 2. So I spend the majority of my time working with our clients on their talent attraction strategies. And I think on this subject, the biggest change we've seen in the last few years, I've been in the industry 30 years, so it's certainly changed in the last few, but you used to be able to have an employer brand and a consumer brand. So this is what we like, this is the way we behave in front of our clients and our customers, and this is the way we behave with our employers. Well, about 5 or 6 years ago, that completely merged. In fact, McDonald's, of all companies, were the first ones to recognize that, and they scrapped both of those departments and called it reputation management and brought it together. And I think they've moved on now, because management's quite a dangerous word. Because managing your reputation sounds like you're massaging, and today's world is about transparency. But I think the biggest change we've seen is that when you talk about talent attraction and talent management, it used to be about attract, recruit, retain. Retain itself is a very negative word. It's, we found one, lock the doors. So really, that should be about develop. But the way the world's changed now is there's 3 things before that, and that's listen, connect, and engaged. So any human being now out there that we still call candidates for some bizarre reason, but any human being out there that's thinking about at some point having a relationship with your organization, whether that be as an employee or as a contractor, first thing they can do is listen. They want to connect, they want to engage before they ever think about applying. So I think with the CSR point, it's about being transparent and being real. And we'll get into that more as we go through it.
Wonderful. Carolyn?
So I'm Carolyn O'Boyle with Deloitte. I'm actually the leader of our Talent Strategic Initiatives group. As part of that role, one of the things that we've done over the past year is re-articulated our talent strategy through the lens of our value proposition to our people. So, as you were saying, what is it that makes people join, and what is it that makes people stay? So a little bit of a different flavor of engage and retain. And we really see that there's a lot of intersections between that talent strategy and corporate responsibility. Corporate responsibility is one of Deloitte's core values, and to me it really comes down to a couple of different things. What is our employment brand? So how do our candidates perceive us? What are the development opportunities that they have, either through skills-based volunteerism or pro bono project work? And then what is it, how can we use community involvement to create avenues for social connectedness? So how can we use those programs or those opportunities to bring the firm together? So I think those are some of the things that we've been focused on most recently.
Lalita?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with our esteemed colleagues and moderator. My name is Lalita Advani. I oversee community engagement at Credit Suisse. For those of you who know us, we're a global financial services firm, and we really value our people, all 50,000 of them. And really, a corporate philanthropist, as you know, all of you in the audience, is different from a private philanthropist. We have our money, certainly, but we have these employees who are waiting to be engaged by us, and we see that as a huge opportunity. Corporate citizenship at Credit Suisse looks at the societal impact we're making as well as the business impact. And the business impact really ties to all the human capital indicators, the recruitment, the retention, the leadership development. And corporate citizenship really sits within this broader umbrella of talent, branding, and communications, which I think is perfect given the synergies in that space. One of the things we're really proud of, I know Carolyn mentioned pro bono volunteering, which Deloitte is really the leader in, is when you look at the volunteering pyramid and as you go up, we really think board service and serving in communities through board leadership is an amazing way to engage this workforce, to develop their leadership skills, and to have this transfer of skills from the for-profit world to the non-profit world. And yes, that circle of exchange continues because you learn different things when you're navigating the non-profit world with the resource constraints and the challenges facing. And so we bring that back to Credit Suisse. We've had a tremendous response to this program, not only by our employees, but by our clients as well. And I really see a huge potential in that area.
Wonderful, thank you. Now, Bruce, I know that Elliot just mentioned the study that CR Magazine and Allegis had done. How important do you see sort of the reputation of business and sort of building or breaking down the reputation, and how does sort of CSR sort of work into that piece?
I think, and we've all heard the phrase that McKinsey coined back in the day, the war for talent. Some of you may have heard the recent one, the war for talent is over, the candidate has won. And that is a reality. I mean, and if you look at Microsoft last Thursday came out publicly and said they're lobbying the government because the US is in a crisis mode with IT. We have more people graduated in 1990 with computer skills than did this year. And now the world goes on technology. And 22 years later, there are less students. Only 50% of those IT students actually go into IT. So the point being is that that war for talent is very, very real. And the whole subject of CSR is now firmly on the agenda. But think about generationally, think about Gen Yers. To them, this isn't a checklist. This isn't saying, oh, okay, do they have CSR tick? It's just built into them. A bit like Doug was saying before, CSR, from our perspective, from employer brand, isn't something that a department does. It's something that the company smells of. You can feel it in the culture. So I think that it's beyond important. It's table stakes now. And those organizations that are perhaps trying to make out there's something that they're not, then that's on Glassdoor within a nanosecond. I'm sure most of you have heard of Glassdoor, where people have the ability to talk about organizations. So you can't make things up anymore. You have to be real. Back in the day, I remember the first time I ever heard the phrase CSR, probably about 15 years ago, and it was ticking a box, but like diversity was back then as well. And I think now, thank heavens, this is now real. So I would say that, to answer your question directly, it's table stakes.
Yeah. So in that, being table stakes, how does the rest of you sort of see corporate responsibility for your businesses, and how we sort of build your external employment brand for recruiting?
Well, for us, John Anthony, I think people may have already be familiar with this program, but I think the signature one that for us shows the best crossover between employment and talent concerns and our CSR is called Corporate Service Corps. It's the name is taken because it's like a Peace Corps for corporations, and we take top talent. And it's especially important for us because we're in 170 countries. We need to build intercultural skills too. And they have to apply, and they're selected. They're put on 10-person teams, and those teams are deployed around the world to go and help governments, NGOs, communities in a variety of ways, using their skills from work. And that's been extremely effective for us. There's close to a 90% response that it's the best or one of the best development opportunities people have had, and they also report to us that they're much more likely to continue or end their career even with IBM as a result of that. So for us, responding to it and finding something that the company is going to stay committed to that really engages the business, because it also shows us as a great solutions company, and that sticks with the brand, and that's been a very successful program for us.
Yeah, we do something similar. I mean, we have obviously our alternative spring break program, which targets college seniors, college underclassmen, and brings them together for a week-long service trip. It's part of building that community, and also not just telling people about our commitment to corporate responsibility, but showing them as well. So that's one example. We also have embedded corporate activities into our summer intern programs. So last year, actually, one of our summer intern classes participated in some activities at a food bank. So again, multiple opportunities for us to really show how we're doing that and engaging the recruits in that process.
Yeah, this summer alone, we had almost 1,000 new hires and summer interns participate in projects across New York City. And this is just our way of showing them a glimpse of what's possible. And if you speak to them, you know that what they're trying to do with their lives is more than come into work and earn a living. They're looking to leave a legacy, and that's a tall order. And so what we try to show them at Credit Suisse is you can have it all. You can come here, impact the business, which is worthwhile in its own way, and you can impact the community in the way you choose. And the biggest thing we try to do is show there's need in our local communities right here in New York City. And while we have programs that also send folks across the world, we really try to show them that there is a need now, there's an urgency now, and we at Credit Suisse can help facilitate, fill that gap.
So I think they really sort of showed how CSR really sort of impacts the external brand of how you sort of bring in the potential new employees, or as you're building that employment. Now, how do you sort of look at your CSR program sort of from an internal employment brand, sort of really engaging? I think, Red, you started a little bit about that with the Corporate Service Corps, but so how do you sort of see that really sort of internal brand and your current employees?
I think internally, it's very important to get the business support. We live and work with the business. So what we sit down and do with each department at Credit Suisse is really talk about what are your goals, human capital, business, and otherwise. And as we know, you really don't know someone unless you've gone out and volunteered with them. You can have drinks, you can go out for dinner, but there is a complete difference when you're making a difference together. And what we do is bring down some of these, break down some of these silos. We have senior-junior interactions. We have employees who go out and team build and are able to deliver on our one bank model and work with different parts of the firm. We have global offsites that make volunteering part of this. And so we really look at the business goals, we work with what's relevant to the business, and in our mind, that builds sustainable programs, because if it's relevant to the business, it's going to stay, and it's not something you do separately, it's part of who we are. And that's how we look at our internal brand.
The internal part for us, John Anthony, I think, well, something like this Corporate Service Corps is quite high profile. and enlarged by the standards for that kind of program, we'll have around 2,000 people have participated in it by the end of this year. But day in and day out, for most employees, they're touched more by what they want to do personally as a volunteer. So we have a program internally called On Demand Community. And what that does is it's a website for our employees, and actually it's for our retirees, and we make parts of this available to the public, that has different tools on it, educational tools, tools to help nonprofits and so on, so they can be, it supports them in their volunteering. It also lists volunteer opportunities, and we give grants to the nonprofits where they volunteer, and we match their grants. So we have this range of things to let them know that we think it's important as a company that our folks make that contribution, and we think it's very important they make that contribution, and that we support them in those ways.
Right. You know, I think it's if you ever read any negative press about the new generation of today, there's no loyalty. You know, they live for today, short-termism, instant gratification, walk out of a job without a thought. People aren't less loyal, they're just loyal to different things. And people are loyal to causes now. So things that you're talking about at IBM, you can imagine the employee engagement levels of those people, because they're loyal to that cause. Yep. And it almost doesn't matter that it says IBM, or it could say Deloitte above the door. It's the cause they're loyal to. And the chance, you know, if a headhunter called one of those people and said, I'm with my friends here. That's what I'm loyal to. I think that's a massive, massive impact. Because people want to belong to something. Yeah. And what better than doing good? You know?
So, and I think that loyalty and that employment brand is important. Do we see that also building on these employee skills and these leadership skills that they need to actually build their career?
I certainly think so. I mean, I think the pro bono projects that we do, either very formally or even the skills-based volunteerism, gives people opportunities probably earlier in their careers to develop some of the executive presence skills or the leadership skills. One of the activities that we've done as part of our Impact Day, which is a global day of community service across Deloitte, is in Boston we have a nonprofit summit. And for whatever reason, historically, that's actually organized by a group of our business analysts, which are folks who have just graduated from college. So, you know, they're very young in their careers, but they're responsible for setting out this entire summit for a group of about 50 nonprofit executives. So they have the opportunity to interact with those executives, work on their communication skills, essentially project manage the entire thing, as well as work on some of their core consulting skills, right? Those critical questions of who is my audience, what are they interested in, how can I go fill that gap for them? So for me, it's about development, but I think there's a really nice benefit for some of our more junior employees who, they may not be playing in that role on one of their client service engagements.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And just coming back to our board service program, we offer it for both our junior and mid-level employees as well as our senior employees. And we have 2 strands, and the response on both levels has been phenomenal, partly because our employees are humble enough to know and be intellectually curious enough to say, this is what I know and this is what I don't know. And to be honest, the transferable skills, if you're learning about fundraising fearlessly, which is one of our classes, well, you can use that in your business day to day. And so I am having conversations with senior leaders who are coming to us for advice on how they can raise money for their nonprofits. And they're getting out of their comfort zone, which we think is a huge benefit when they come back to the workplace and innovate and produce solutions there. And so really think the skill building that is afforded in a very natural way without spending a lot of money is terrific.
Just one point on this building skills and aligning to the company's business. We have a program called Smarter Cities Challenge, which is a philanthropic program. It's an application program, and cities can apply and receive a grant to tackle whatever their most pressing urban problem is. And we've had them in public safety, in transportation, in energy management, in education. They receive the grant in the form of IBM services from our consultants, brought from our practice, our public practice that have worked with governments. So we're actually using them to deliver our CSR program, and at the same time, they're getting more experience, they're seeing more situations, we're fashioning new solutions, and those go into the body of knowledge and what we have to present for our further work with new clients on the business side. So we see it as right up to the level of alignment to the current business.
That's phenomenal. So I think, as we've heard, really, it's the external brand that we, recruiting and bringing in our new employees, as well as CSR really impacts our talent development, really sort of internally, building the skills, although in building the internal brand around engagement. But we see so much of philanthropy today is really on looking at youth and education and the future workforce. Do you feel that these investments are also providing a return on investment back to your firms?
Yeah, I think it's massive. And being a guy in marketing, every time I have a conversation with the CFO, the first three letters are ROI.
Yeah.
So I live in that world every day because, in the world of social media, how do you measure that? It's all that thing. But when you look at CSR, I think that one of the biggest impacts for me, and it's almost a spin-off, is what this is giving organizations an ability to truly find out what those people, their talent, what their passion is and what they're really good at, what they enjoy doing. So the programs you've been talking about, you're actually seeing the real person. You're not seeing that person that, unfortunately, most HRIS, HR systems, you take somebody's resume when they join, put a job description with it, put it into the system and never look at it again. So most organizations find it hard to truly understand what talent they've got within. And they keep going outside looking for this talent, and they've probably already got it, it's just they can't access it and see it. So through programs like this, I think the biggest, from a pure dollars and cents, is truly understanding the power of your people and allowing them to rise and play to their strengths and do what they enjoy.
And Jonathan, I think there's another connection here for companies. We've been very active in the education space, and if you go back to the comment that was made that says people that are coming out for the labor pool don't have the skills that are necessary, they're not going to have jobs that are going to allow them to have a successful life. We need, as businesses, to take, and this is, again, taking our expertise and putting it back into the community. Schools and education need the knowledge from business of what they should be teaching and what the skills of the future are. They can't figure that out on themselves. If you look in a school environment, what would tell them about what's going to be required in the job market 5 years from now? We need to be engaged in another way. So one example here in New York, we worked with the Department of Education and CUNY, which is our higher education city college organization, and created a 6-year program that's focused on IT, but it could be done for other industries, lots of other areas. The skills of the future can be taught. It needs to be part of what's in education to make it meaningful for kids. And the reason we did 6 years is that the old education system saw a natural break at age 18, is when you leave the comfort of a high school and the comfort of a neighborhood you knew, perhaps, and go away to college. Well, if you were designing it today, would anybody say 18 years old is a good time to have all those changes happen to a young person at once? And I don't think it is. So the idea here was that they will come out of this 6-year school, 9, 10, 11, 12, and first 2 years of college, with a degree, something that's specific and a skill that we know can be hired, and they can go on, of course, and finish their college degree, but they'll have that, and they'll have the continuity going through, and they'll also have exposure to real industry issues, real industry skills as they go through. So we're helping them do the curriculum.
Yeah, we've actually also identified education as one of our signature issues. I think what we're trying to do is, how can we get college admissions or college attendance to be the norm? So we're sort of doing that through a couple of different ways. There's investments that we're making with some of the nonprofits who are leading in this space. But it's also become a way for us to get a lot more of our smaller programs within the firm involved and focused on a single issue. So, I know a couple of years ago we had a group of folks within consulting who wanted to have a skills-based volunteerism for their onboarding classes. So the first day before our new hires started, they would actually all do a community activity together. And so this became a way for us to build their enthusiasm and their participation into that theme. So they were out in the schools working with folks, helping them understand, maybe some of the opportunities that they had, build awareness about those opportunities. And it's really become a nice focal point for us as a firm.
Wonderful. So, as we wrap up, and I think we may have time for one question from the audience, but I would love to hear from all the panelists. What is one thing that you'd want the audience to really sort of understand, or a lesson that you have learned that they should really sort of invest and investigate sort of this cross between CSR and talent development?
Well, I think where we started on the session is that work is a much different thing now than it was 20 years ago, and the last thing we're sort of moving to the point where the last thing a person wants to think about their job is that it's work. And if you can think of the ways that inspire people and move people and make them really be the most effective from the point of view of a company and looking at its talent, you need to reach them on a level and show that you're sincere about supporting them on a level that is the most meaningful to them. And I think these, what we've called CSR historically, are really the aspects of a corporation and the expectations of a corporation that come closest to that. And you have to find that crossover between the people that you want to work with you, really for you, but with you, and who you are as a company, or you're not going to be able to have the kind of relationship with them you need.
I think something very, very tactical that we're doing now with a lot of our clients is we're taking employee referral programs and reinventing them as social referral programs. And one of the reasons for that, if you look just in the US, last year, over 60% of people that found a new job said they found that job through a connection. So job boards just don't work anymore. People don't cold, they don't cold approach an organization. They want to get to know them, and they'll find that through a connection. So if you think about that, we're now in a world where it's one-on-one marketing. So to get to that one-on-one, it's about using your employee and your contractor base as your talent ambassadors. And one of the things that happened a few years ago is companies started paying those people. You refer somebody, I'll give you $1,500, $3,000, $5,000. That doesn't suit everybody. And interestingly, it doesn't suit senior people. People exec level and above, they almost feel guilty of taking that. So those programs don't necessarily work. So what we've done is created this social referral program, which is based on points. So as people refer people, they get points. And you can, one of our clients, they've split Europe into 4 regions. There's a monthly competition. The winning region gets £25,000 in this instance to go and do some good in the community. It's phenomenal the way this has taken off, because all the senior execs get involved because they're pitching against each other, very competitive. And it's just, to me, it's just a different way of thinking about how can we inspire our people to attract more people like them and great talent, and get away from that, paying a bounty, which is, So I think that's pretty easily done, something people could do quite easily, and it's just a nice cultural piece of the business.
I think that goes to Dove's point, really sort of changing behavior to really just kind of changing it.
So you're shifting that side.
Carolyn?
Well, I'll return actually back to the notion of our talent strategy, because to me, our talent strategy and what we do from a corporate responsibility perspective are just so linked. And it's even broader beyond that. Is what opportunities can we provide for our people? How can we help them develop? But also, how can we enrich the outside the walls of our firm, the community that's around us? And there's opportunities or leverage points and synergies between all 3 of those areas. And I think it just takes focus and dedication to capture them. And so I think an organization that can break down the silos that we were all sort of talking about and really tap into that is going to be one that's able to really be successful as we move forward.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think we've collectively said many of the same things, and I think as you go back to your desks, the challenge is always, what are the couple of nuggets you're going to take back and come up with this great new idea? I think that we're scratching the surface of where we can be. I think there is a fundamental way to reshape the employment equation where integrating this can be done in an even more material and meaningful way. I think we've made great progress. I think there's a huge win-win with the business, with the individual who's looking to realize this potential. And aren't we all? I mean, we're all looking to make a difference in this world through our business and through our community. And what our functions allow us the opportunity to do, and I think we have the best jobs in the world, is to play that facilitation role. And so I think if you go back to your companies and do your bit, and if we go back and do ours, this can become an even bigger growth industry than it is.
So what I think we saw here with these amazing companies is how you really can leverage CSR and talent development and really sort of look across the entire talent pipeline, from the future workforce, recruiting your current workforce, and then your incumbent workforce, and really sort of how to sort of build and develop these leaders internal to your organization. We have just a couple of minutes if I have any questions. Anyone? Yes. Can we get
This is a pretty broad question, so I don't know how long, if we can answer it quickly. But being in human capital myself, I understand and appreciate how important employee engagement is to make anything successful, from a CSR initiative to a sustainability initiative, things like that. But I also understand how it can sometimes be seen as the second priority to the main business priority. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we face when it actually is so key in making anything successful. So I was wondering if anyone had any examples of or guidance on how you can make it a strategic priority for the business as a whole instead of just the afterthought.
Anyone?
Well, I would just a couple of things. One is I think that HR has to be really aware of just what the cost of turnover and recruitment and failure to get the right talent for the business is. If that's not articulated, it's hard to know what the downside is. And the other thing is I think that the linkage to the CSR programs has to be effectively communicated to get the real gain out of it.
Yeah, I think that it's about making it real, and it's about any success, celebrating it very loudly, but in a genuine way. The marketers used to say that content was king. Well, now conversation is king. Content's just the stuff they're talking about. So no matter how small, any advantages that have come out of the organization through engagement, just by getting that communicated through the right channels in a very genuine way, I think it almost just gets a snowball effect. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a big bang. And I know it's easy to say, but as Doug was saying before, it's just about doing it, not talking about it. And that's why it concerns me slightly having a CSR department almost. It's a bit like back in the day when you used to, in the manufacturer, you used to have quality meetings. There's kind of a quality meeting and come back and do a rubbish job again. I mean, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. We've just got to be it.
I think I would just say meet people where they're at. So if you feel it's secondary to the business, meet with the business, learn what is important to them, and really meet them where they are and take them to where you want to go. And people love competition. If you get one senior sponsor and one department who's going out and telling your story in their own words, they'll all follow. So it's just getting the first couple.
Wonderful. One more? Yes.
I thought it was an interesting comment about the generation coming up isn't less loyal, it's just loyal about different things. And I'm fascinated about generations and how different they might be, although probably you could say there's a lot of commonalities too that never ever change. My 13-year-old knows so much more about the internet and technology than I could ever imagined at the same age. And I'm fascinated by that benefit and also that challenge, because he also spends too much time with that stuff. Do you see any consequences of our current connected generation in terms of social media and whatever that's becoming more and more prominent, and how that might create different employment dynamics in the future?
Yeah, I think the biggest shift we're seeing, which that is part of, is the growth of the contingent worker. So right now in the US, we're at 30% in the private sector. By 2020, that will be 50%, according to Human Capital Institute, which I agree with. So just 8 years' time, half of the people in the US in work in the private sector will be in a non-traditional relationship. By non-traditional, I mean, not an employee. So that has a massive impact on the way people think about work, but also, as an organization, the way we have to think about that workforce. Because it's a different social contract, and that's been driven by the people. Historically, that's been driven by the companies. Let's make a decision on what our permanent versus temporary workforce looks like. That's turned on its head. This really is the era, as to quote Doug again, this is the era of the human, it's the people power. So I think that's the biggest difference. And because that connectivity allows them to do this stuff so much easier. They can work from anywhere, etc. So I could talk about it for hours, but I won't.
And I think the technology's made a huge difference too. The working moms organization that was speaking earlier, it's actually enabled it, because once you're pulled out of that workplace, you don't have to be in the same place every day with the same group of people. You have a much different view of the world and who your professional network can be. So technology's changed it dramatically.
One thing I've seen as well is, what I've seen with a number of these these businesses, these best practice businesses, they have allowed these Gen Yers, these millennials, to post. So if you've done a habitat build in New Orleans with your firm, you see YouTube videos about it immediately, and that sort of starts building that employment brand. I may not go look to that as my first place to go, but I know a number of these kids coming up through the ranks. They're going to look there first, say, what are they doing, and is that the kind of company, is that the employment brand that I want to be associated with? To the study to sort of bring it full circle is the study that was just done by Allegis and CR Magazine, is really, how is that employment brand really sort of going to bring in that future or that current workforce and really make that resonate, or are they going to be going somewhere else and actually costing your business more money? So at this point, I want to thank our prestigious panel for being here, and thank you all very much.